A dangerous chapter has started in the Russia-Ukraine war, with each passing hour making the situation increasingly precarious following a series of escalations. Moscow shot down dozens of drones in the early hours of Monday. According to the mayor's statement earlier, 84 drones headed for Moscow were downed in the past 24 hours. Airports in Moscow had to briefly suspend flights as well. In total, the Russian defense systems downed 301 drones overnight, as per the local news wires, citing the defense ministry. And this comes just days after a repeated Ukrainian strike on the city's oil refinery. Meanwhile, Russian attacks in Ukraine reportedly killed at least 6 people, including a boy and his father. Russian drone attacks in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia overnight and early on Monday killed 2 people and injured a further 7, according to Ukraine's emergency services. Russia also hit the southern Odessa region with a ballistic missile on Sunday evening, killing 1 and injuring 3 people, according to the regional governor. According to him, in fact, vehicles and fuel storage tanks caught fire after the strike hit an agricultural facility. The city of Sevastopol in Russia-annexed Crimea cancelled all open-air public events on Monday and will be keeping streetlights switched off, according to its governor, as he called on people to curb the electricity usage. The Kremlin has said intense work was underway to try to minimize the negative consequences of the fuel disruption in Russian-held Crimea following the Ukrainian drone attacks on the Black Sea Peninsula. Crimea has reportedly suspended fuel sales to the public and businesses, with supplies restricted to government agencies responsible for essential services and security. As Ukraine's drone attacks on its supply routes and energy facilities elsewhere led to a fuel crisis, in fact, the Ukrainian president has said Ukrainian forces have struck energy and military infrastructure either side of the key bridge linking Crimea and Russia. According to Ukraine's Navy, meanwhile, Russian drones hit a Turkish dry cargo vessel which was sailing under a Panamanian flag. In fact, the Deputy Prime Minister has said a 58-year-old Egyptian cook was killed. 8 other crew members, including some Turkish and Indian nationals, had to evacuate on a lifeboat. Russia has repeatedly attacked Ukraine's maritime export routes, striking vessels and ports vital to foreign trade. In fact, the latest escalation coming at a time when the situation has already been heating up, reaching dangerous levels of volatility. Remember, earlier Russia had vowed to hit back with massive group strikes in response to Ukraine's largest ever drone bombardment of Moscow. Ukrainian forces had launched nearly 200 drones at the Russian capital on Thursday itself, with more than 1,000 drones fired at Russia on Thursday alone. A drone strike hit Moscow's Sol oil refinery last week in one of the biggest air attacks on the city since the war started. On Monday, a huge plume of smoke rose from a production plant in Russia's Voronezh after a strike. As Ukraine said, it had targeted the site. President Zelensky had issued an ultimatum earlier, giving Belarus's leader a week to remove equipment from his country used in the Russian drone attacks on Ukraine. The Ukrainian leader threatened to take action if his message was ignored. And now, in the latest from behind the scenes, the Kremlin has accused Ukraine of threatening the sovereignty of the close Russian ally Belarus, but also said it had no doubts that Minsk was in a position to defend itself. The Kremlin spokesman also said Putin and Lukashenko would be discussing Zelensky's remarks. Big questions continue to hang in the air. What about the peace talks? What would the strategy look like from here onwards on the two sides? Remember, Russia and Ukraine have both intensified attacks on each other in recent weeks, even as the U.S.-led talks on ending the war remain effectively frozen. While some would say the world's attention has pretty much been on the Iran war and the situation in West Asia overall, the Ukraine war needs to end before it has more explosive consequences. Remember, Trump promised to end the war in 24 hours. It's already been the longest 24 hours ever, it seems. The war, by the way, has gone on for over 1,500 days. And as of now, there are no signs of the tensions easing. And even as the U.S. president's threat to hit Iran very hard again risked derailing the talks in Switzerland, both sides eventually agreed on a roadmap towards reaching a final deal within a period of 60 days. After the first session of the high-level talks, the parties decided to basically form a high-level committee which will be providing oversight on the mediation process. The chief negotiators, in turn, will report regularly to this committee for ensuring the effective implementation of the MOU. This essentially laid the foundation for the immediate commencement of further technical talks. In order to avoid incidents and miscommunication, a communication line has been formed aiming for the safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Apart from this, the U.S. and Iran resolved to create a deconfliction cell, which will involve the two sides and Lebanon to ensure the termination of military operations in Lebanon. In a major potential revenue boost for Iran, meanwhile, the U.S. issued a temporary 60-day license authorizing the production, delivery and sale of Iranian oil, while the IRGC has announced the closure of Hormuz over the weekend, citing Israel's continued breach of the ceasefire in Lebanon. The U.S. claimed that Iran has committed to free and open transit in that crucial waterway. In fact, the U.S. Vice President revealed that the talks so far had laid what he called a very good foundation for reaching a final deal on ending the war, and he claimed that Iran has agreed to permit IAEA inspectors back into the country. It's also worth noting here that Tehran suspended cooperation with the world's nuclear watchdog last year, remember, after the U.S.-Israeli air attacks on its nuclear sites.
Iranians have agreed to invite IAEA inspectors back into their country. That is a major milestone for the American people and the first step in permanently denuclearizing or permanently ending a nuclear weapons program in Iran.
And weighing in on Trump's threat, Vance asserted that it was in response to the alleged trash talk. While acknowledging that the Iranian delegation threatened to walk out subsequently, he also claimed that it did not follow up on its threat. While Trump has regularly denied any possibility of releasing funds to Iran, Vance's position was markedly different. In a first admission of sorts, the U.S. admitted that it could agree to unfreeze Iranian assets, which would supposedly be used by Tehran for purchasing U.S. soy, corn, wheat. Tehran has not confirmed that claim.
If there is any frozen Iranian assets that are unfrozen, then we have approval over that process. The Qataris have approval over that process. And then the money would actually go to buy American soy, American corn, and American wheat for the benefit of the Iranian people.
And why does all of this matter? The discussion of releasing its frozen assets, remember, is one of Iran's preconditions to commence the negotiations for a final agreement. And that's why this is extremely crucial.
Issuing the necessary permits for the export of Iran's oil and petrochemical derivatives and the discussion of releasing Iran's frozen assets are two important issues. These two must happen so that we can enter into negotiations for a final agreement according to Article 13 of the Memorandum of Understanding.
But the two sides still remain at loggerheads over key issues. For example, while the Iranian foreign minister claimed that a major reconstruction and development plan has been launched for the country, the joint statement issued by Qatar and Pakistan made no mention of that. Also, when it comes to the management of Hormuz, that of course remains that major point of contention. The Masoud Pezeshkian-led government is also yet to confirm access to the IAEA or how it plans to deal with the enriched uranium. Besides this, Israel's repeated violation of the Lebanon ceasefire remains a sticking point, of course. Iran's red line remains clear, with Arakchi dubbing the creation of the deconfliction cell the first real test of America's commitment. But with the technical talks expected to continue in the next few days and weeks, hopes are rising for better cooperation between Iran and America as of now. Following months of mounting pressure, Keir Starmer has now announced his resignation as the UK Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, kick-starting a process that will see Britain getting a new Prime Minister all over again. This is the latest round in the musical chairs at 10 Downing Street, it seems. In fact, in a speech outside 10 Downing Street, Starmer conceded he had lost the support of his Labour Party MPs. He also said he had informed King Charles about his decision to step down so that a new Labour leader and Prime Minister could be elected. Listen in to what he said.
I will ask the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party to set out a timetable with nominations opening on the 9th of July and completed by the summer recess. In the case of a contest, this will ensure a new leader is in place before Parliament returns in September.
And his departure follows mounting pressure from within the party and outside after the disappointing election performances, internal divisions and growing concerns overall about the party's ability to counter the rise of Reform UK. Starmer said he would remain in office until the Labour Party elects a new leader and Prime Minister. Several senior ministers and party figures are now being discussed as potential successors as Labour prepares for that major leadership contest. Andy Burnham widely seen as the leading candidate to succeed Starmer. Hours after the resignation announcement as the leader of the Labour Party, Burnham sworn in as the new MP for Makerfield. And remember, he has confirmed that he would be seeking to replace Starmer as leader of the ruling Labour Party and Prime Minister. Also, Angela Rayner remains one of the most recognisable figures in the party and is often mentioned as a possible successor. Other potential names or challengers for the UK top job, including the former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, also the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. The leader of the hard-right anti-immigration Reform UK party, Nigel Farage, meanwhile, has called for general elections to be held after Starmer announced his resignation. And now with Starmer's exit, the list of UK prime ministers who have left office before the next general election continues to grow, from the departure of Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak. Frequent changes in the leadership there have become a defining feature, it seems, of British politics. Meanwhile, the Russian presidential envoy has celebrated the British Prime Minister Starmer's resignation, publicly claiming that Russia did this jointly by exposing Starmer's policies. And Starmer's resignation coming less than 2 years after Labour's sweeping victory in the 2024 general election. Starmer, remember, was nearly ousted in the month of March over that ill-fated decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, a known associate of the late U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, as the UK's ambassador to Washington. Of course, let's also take a look at what the sentiment has looked like on the ground. This is how some of the people have been reacting to Starmer's resignation announcement. Also, the potential candidates who are in the fray to replace him, the names that have been doing the rounds. Here are some voices.
Not surprised. I think he's done the right thing. I think he needs to step aside and let someone else take over. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing.
It appears to be a foregone conclusion that Andy Burnham is going to become Prime Minister. It looks like it might be a coronation. There is some debate that it should be contested, and it would be more healthy if there was some form of contest.
I'm glad, really. Just needed a change. I think like most of the country are probably feeling the same way as what I am. Like, all you're hearing is like how much of the bad job he's doing. And I did want to vote Labour in the first place, but I'm just worried it's going to be out of the frying pan and into the fire now with potentially this Andy Burnham coming in.
Well, I think it's good because I'm living here 18 years, and since I came over here, this country was beautiful. You could work, live, do whatever you like. Right now, you just work like a slave, and you don't have money for nothing. I'm a hard-working labor. I work in construction site, and it's really, this country went down for this couple of years already.
After 50 days of intense protests, disrupted supply of fuel, food, medical items across Bolivia, The president has declared a state of emergency. However, protests continue in the political stronghold of the ex-Bolivian president, Evo Morales. Our next report getting you the latest from on the ground.
Since early May, Bolivia has been rocked by huge anti-government protests. Road blockades in several parts of the country left cities like Capital La Paz and El Alto short of fuel and food. At least 14 people lost their lives, and the economic losses have been estimated at over $2 billion. Dubbing the protests as an attempted coup, Bolivia's President Rodrigo Paz declared a state of emergency on June 20th, which was ratified by the country's parliament. It was aimed at restoring transit and supply of essential goods. The military has now been deployed to clear blockades and prohibit people from blocking roads and highways. But clashes between military forces and demonstrators broke out on the highway connecting Cochabamba to the center of Bolivia. While the security personnel were seen firing tear gas, protesters allegedly threw explosives at them.
They, roadblockers, threw stones at me and tossed dynamite into my truck. And last night they threatened to burn my truck again. So last night we had to sleep in fear.
Cochabamba is considered the political stronghold of ex-Bolivian President Evo Morales. Coca Growers Union, close to him, are leading protests there. The government accuses him of instigating and financing protests to secure immunity from a judicial probe into the alleged abuse of a minor when he was president. However, Morales has denied this and linked the protests to economic hardship. In a tragedy, an Air Force jet which had been conducting aerial patrol over a blockaded highway connecting La Paz and Cochabamba crashed, leaving 6 people dead. Amid the protests, the government has left the doors open for dialogue to resolve the crises.
The doors are open to continue dialogue. Moreover, this decree provides the possibility of continuing dialogue with the groups that want to resist. But today, the Constitution has already mandated that we must safeguard and guarantee Bolivians' freedom of movement.
There is a ray of hope for the people. After successful negotiations with many protesters, the number of roadblocks have been reduced to 28. While the emergency will last 90 days, the government has hinted that it could be lifted earlier if violence comes to an end. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Shifting focus, after 47 years, the European Union has changed its mind on Assam. Brussels' withdrawal of its negative travel advisory in force since 1979 clears all 27 member nations to visit nearly the entire state of Assam. In our next report, we are decoding the economic and the strategic boost for Assam from the EU's latest move. Take a look.
Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma confirmed European Union's decision to remove the travel restrictions on the state. Sarma said EU Ambassador Herve Delphin informed Assam's Chief Secretary the change took effect from Friday 19th of June. This is not an isolated diplomatic gesture. It is the third advisory rollback in 18 months. Australia and Japan had lifted similar restrictions last year. Sarma said the EU's decision will boost tourism, business and enhance ties with Brussels. The Chief Minister said Washington and Ottawa are next on the list, and a clean sweep there would matter more than the headline suggests, because US and Canadian advisories carry the heaviest weight with insurers and corporate travel desks. Track the timeline and the strategy becomes obvious. Assam has been working with foreign embassies since Advantage Assam Summit held in February 2025, which pulled in 4.92 trillion rupees or about $52 billion, nearly 5 times the 2018 edition. 67 heads of mission and delegates from 76 countries showed up. Travel advisories don't just deter tourists, they deter business travel, insurance coverage and institutional money. Lifting one widens the funnel for everything else, including hotels, homestays, MICE tourism and even due diligence visits from prospective investors who had previously sent compliance teams instead of coming themselves. The EU's decision opens up foreign investment in the state, giving a shot in the arm for Assam's economic ambitions. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.